My story is an escape about betrayal, revenge, and love. As a member of the wolf pack, I was forced to make a choice between two powerful alphas, my ex-lover, and my destined mate. This is a plot filled with contradictions and contrasts. How do I survive in the world of two wolf packs? And how do I face my true feelings within? Chapter 20. Jenny okay? I'll be lying if I said that wasn't effkin scary. Just him. In my mind. Saying he sees me. Right when he said that, I turned around and raised my ears high, listening for any sound of him. I even sniffed the air. I looked up and see the sun about to rise, and I bet he brought the Alex or someone with him. Or at least he left in charge. I sprinted towards the opening of the woods. I sniffed the air and I didn't smell any scent. So I think I found open field. I hid my scent for a good while by rolling into mud and dirt, but now it's hardened and rubbing against my skin. I whimpered, but I kept running away from him. If he wants to play a game of chase, then I would give him a good game of chase. One that he would never win. I looked back to see if he was behind, but nothing. I felt my lips move up to a wolfy smile, but right when I turned around I ran into a tree. The FCK. I thought it was an opening. I fell backwards and rolled on my side. I sneezed because it hit me right in the nose. I shook my head and was about to get up, but that when I knew I wasn't alone. A snout came on my neck and growled. I growled back and was about to get up, but they put both their paws on my side. They put their weight in their front paw, so I think he was more like 6-pound wolf. So yeah, that on your rib hurts like a BTCH. I snapped at his stomach, but he jumped up and landed harder on my side. I growled and started to shake, and he fell on top of me. I clamped my jaw on his side and shook violently. His head turned towards me, but he moved to the side and pulled back and placed my paws on his side and yanked off a good piece of meat off of him. He howled and I growled because he might give me away. So I spit out the meat, and when he was turning around I got his neck and clamped down as hard as I could and pulled back, taking the piece with me. His mouth would open and close, but nothing came out. His throat is gushing out blood, and he falls on his side with his eyes open, staring at the blue sky. I got on top of him and started to rub his scent all over me and wiped my snout on the grass, then back on his fur. I took off in a sprint and looked ahead for any trees. I pasted to territories already, but I never went inside. I didn't want to be thought of a rogue. I think the wolf I killed was one, because he smelled horrible. I found a stream and I was already panting. My paws hurt so much. I bent down and drank the cool water. I shifted when I was done. And my feet were blistered and bleeding. Pieces of twigs were jammed in the heels of my feet and I had to bite my lip from crying. I slowly started to pull them out. I bit my lip. I can taste the blood in my mouth. I sunk my feet in the water. It stung but felt good. I laid down with my feet in the rushing water and stared at the clouds moving slowly around the sky. The sky was light blue and it was a nice day, well, for the others. Clearly not me. I'm playing with an alpha. Not just an alpha. The most feared in my mate. And I just killed someone back there. I sighed while covering my eyes with my arm while I listened to the nature here. Birds chirped and squirrels ran around looking for food. My ears listened and I jumped when a twig snapped. I quickly took my arm off my eyes and I sat up. I turned around and see a rabbit munching on the twig, but then ends up hopping away. I sighed and looked back at my feet. I took them out and examined them. They were slowly healing, but that's good enough to keep going. I shifted back and stretched a little before I took off. I started to trout, but that's when I heard a roar. It sent a shiver down my spine. I knew it was him. I started to sprint because his roar wasn't that far away. I started to run west now and I made myself fall. I rolled around in the dirt and looked for more mud. When I found some, I coated myself with it. I got back up and ran towards the woods again. I ran for my life while I heard him roar again, but it was starting to muffle from the miles away from each other. I can kind of smell him, but not that strong. I'm hoping he can't smell me. I prayed that I covered my scent enough. I jumped over logs and dodged trees, twisting and turning around the huge trees. When I couldn't smell him or hear him, I knew I lost him. I smiled, but when I started to smell the air, I lost that smile right away. I'm in someone's territory. I slammed my paws on the ground and started to turn around and sprint towards the area I just left. But it's too late. Warriors were already behind me, in ready position, snaring their fangs at me. I crouched down and started to puff up my fur and slowly started to curl up my lips, showing some fangs. They started to creep forward, but I stayed in my spot. There were 5. 5 against 1. I took out to be 4 but never 5. Dakota and Maddox could take down 5, but I was always the one who can take down 2. When they started to come a little bit close for my liking, I started to walk back. I growled at them, but I stopped when they stood up tall, bending their head down, then bending down with their heads on the ground. I stopped and stood up and slowly looked behind me, because they were staring behind me. His voice said, calm and collected, and I felt my heart drop. Oh no, not him. Chapter 21. Jenna. There he stood. Are you fucking serious? I growled at him, but he stood there with his arms crossed, staring at me. My wolf isn't that big, but I stood almost to his chest. Shift, or I might as well kill you here, he said in his alpha tone. Of Efkin could he started a pack, and became the alpha. I showed my fangs as he watched. He was about to tell his warriors to attack me from behind with his hand, but I did a low growl and started to shift. I had my eyes on him the whole time and stood up. His shoulders went rigid and he sucked in a harsh breath. Calm in, I said while I covered myself. He started to breathe hard and he looked behind me. Take her to the cells. Chain her up too. I'll see her in a little bit, he said while he looked at me again with his nostrils flaring. His jaw clenched and his fist clenched at his side. I growled when I felt one of his warriors grip my arm tight and dragged me around like a ragdoll. I stared at Con the whole time. Like really changed. They took me to the basement and tossed me in. They didn't care if I was without clothes. They chained my wrist above my head. I was sitting on my butt, and my hands were above me. I fought with them, but there were only 3. I don't know what happened to the other 2, but they needed 3 to chain me up. The floor is cold and it stinks really bad in here. It smells like rotten flesh and dead corpse. My wrist burned from the silver, but I felt worse. Just imaging my neck. How I took the pain made me want to rub my neck. The door slammed open, and here he came. He opened the cell door and closed it behind him. He leaned against the door and crossed his arms. He stared at me while I stared at him. He would sometimes look down at me, and that would get him a growl. So you came in here to stare at me? I growled out. No, I came in here to ask you questions. Then what are you doing staring at me? I growled again and shifted to lean against the wall. So now what? You're a rogue. No more Dakota. No more Maddox. I growled at him. No, I'm no rogue. Just passing through. He raised an eyebrow. Sounds like what a rogue would say. Is that it? Know who marked you? He said while he looked at my neck. My ears warmed just thinking about Alkanda. I tilt my head to cover my mark. Why, just wondering. Maybe I can start something with him, Dakota. No, he was never my mate. Then I'll find out another time. Stop talking about me. Let's talk about you. Come in. Tu es agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Talk about how my ex kicked me out of my old pack. How she spread a rumor about me. How she said I was going to end up killing our pack because all I wanted to do was mark you. How she saw me cut all the ties from Ian and the pack. How I lost one of my 2 best friends because how she was too scared to say no. And not break up with me. He was standing in front of me now. His eyes were glowing green. You knew I didn't want to take anything far, yet you kept bugging me to mark me even though I told you I was waiting for. Then why not break up with me then, making Ian turn me a rogue? He yelled in my face. I don't know. I whispered. Kin course. Kin course you don't know. I lost my family because you decided to say that. I had to look down, away from his fury he was throwing at. I lost my family because you said I was going to end up killing our pack and saying I was going to rape you afterwards. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I was dumb back then. I didn't know what I was doing. I was only 16, I said looking back at his glowing green eyes. And I was 18 when I went rogue. He growled to years learning how to live on my own. I fought others on my way. Then I thought. He walked in front of me and squatted till we were eye level. Let me take down an alpha and train my own pack and actually destroy the pack including you. His tone was low and threatening. His eyes went back their normal green that I used to love. I clenched my jaw and stared at him. He smirked and stood up. But since I have you here now, might as well hurt your mate at the same time. His eyes lit with amusement. Where's your mate? I spat while I brought my knees up. He looked down at me and clenched his jaw. Haven't found one, he said while his shoulders went straighter and his muscles showed through his shirt. Now what? Have me locked up? Have me starving? Have me tortured? No. That's now how I do things here. The last alpha did those things, but he smiled down at me. Mine are more, how do you say it? Reasonable. I narrowed my eyes. What the hell does that mean? You'll see. He smirked, then turned his back and was about to walk out, but I stopped him. Wait. He looked over his shoulder. What's going to happen to me? We'll see. Then he walks out. Come in. Come in. I yelled out, but I heard the door close. I haven't noticed the sting in my wrist, but once blood starts to tick down my arms, I see they're badly burned. I look around. There's droplets of water dripping to the floor from the ceiling. There's no window, just bars in front and stone walls surrounding the rest. I look through the bars from where I'm at and see another cellar. I sigh and let my head fall. Rogue 2, a voice said from the other cell in front of me. I jumped from his voice because I thought I was the only in here now. I say, well, I'd like to see him, but I can't, it's too dim in here. Oh well, my name is Helma. Helma. Yeah. I like it though. Oh no. I wasn't saying it was a bad name, but I just never heard a name like that. But I like it. It's unique. Suo, what's your name? Oh, Jenna. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Hearts out thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. No, it's fine. So why are you here? I chuckle. Long story. We got time. It's not like we're leaving anytime soon. He chuckles. Okay then. Chapter 21, Jenna. So you became rogue to find your mate. I said while I shifted around. My arms started to burn from having them up for a while. Yup, why? When you do find her, what do you think she would think about you being a rogue for so long? Well, I'll tell her why I become a rogue. And if she understands and thinks it's cute, then we will be happy. And Nundy if she thinks that she wants to reject me. I would accept it, but I would fight for her every day. Even though she would find someone else, I would never stop trying. I would make her see that she made a mistake about rejecting me. I felt every emotion in his voice and I knew he was thinking about everything about her. Hilma, she would love you. I highly doubt she would reject you because you becoming a rogue. And once you tell her the story about becoming a rogue, I bet she would fall in love with you right there and then. Because if I were yours, I would have fallen in love right there and then. But my heart stunned at my words. Thanks, Jenna. Let's just hope. So, how long have you been here, Helma? 2 days. I'm surprised I'm not dead. I tried to talk to him and tell him my deal, but he just thrown me in here and chained my wrist. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Yeah, I only have one chained, but it's on the ground, so I can't get up and stretched out my limbs. F can be TCH. How are you chained? By both my wrist and they are above my head. You can't stand up. I haven't tried. Try okay. I brought my knees up and I pushed my back towards the wall. I pushed up and moved my back, crawling my way up. My legs were asleep, so it was a tickling pain that made my laugh in pain. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I heard him say across the cell. And nothing, I said between my teeth. I managed to stand up. I shook my legs and arched my back. Now my arms can be down but not all the way. They burned and when I made my arms go limp, they fell hard and the silver burned even more. I bit my lip and once the pain went down. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, Hearts are saints, your unfading patience, enthusiasm. Did you do it? The door slammed open and I jumped from the door, banging the wall. Helma stayed quiet while I looked through the bars. I tried walking closer, but the chain was very short, so it tugged my arms back and made my growl a little. So this is how it's going to go. I'm going to set you free, but we are heading our way upstairs. No silly games, or might as well kill you, Conan said while he walking in front of the cell and unlocked the door. He saw me standing up and looking me over, then came close and unlocked my wrist. I was about to slash his face, but right when he unhinged them, he gripped the wound and tightened his hand. I bit my lip from showing any pain to him, and he whispered in my ear. I said, no silly games, Jenna. Unless you want me to kill you and make that mate of yours die from the pain of you dying. So smart choices means good karma. Think before you strike. He unchained my other hand and the hold on my wrist and dragged me out. Wait. He growled and looked at me once we got out of my cell. If you set Helma free, I would obey at anything. Just don't hurt him. Let him find his mate. Or he can be a really good help to your pack. What? I heard Helma said. I looked at his cell and see him sitting down. He has really bright blue eyes, messed up black hair, and has a really sharp jaw eye. He's without clothes too, but I didn't look there. Please. I'll be. He growled low and almost made me growl back, but he unclamped his hand and walked to his cell. He unlocked it and walked in. I saw Helma tense, but Common walked towards him and bent down and said something to him. Helma growled low, but he kept saying something, but I couldn't hear. Helma was hesitant at first, but he growled. Common chuckled and unlocked his wrist. He stood up, almost falling back down, but he held the wall for support. He pushed him out and pushed him next to me. He pushed my back and made us walk forward. Helma looked at me from the corner of his eye and smiled. I saw him from the corner of my eye and I smiled back. He was taller than me, but not that much. I think he was like 6'2", Common stood at 6'3", I think. He kept pushing us till we made it to the door. He growled from behind us and I thought he was telling us to open the door, so I went to reach the handle, but the door opened with the guard with wide eye and staring anywhere else. Helma got pushed so hard that he almost fell on the guard. He gave a warning growl, but Common didn't seem to care. We walked up the stairs and made it outside. I covered the sun with my hand from my eyes, because it was so bright. Helma did the same. Guards were outside waiting for us. Common came in front of us and told us to follow him. The guards went behind us and I felt stares on my body. I growled and they only chuckled. I was about to turn around, but Coleman growled at us, making us shut up. I guess we walked to his house because the guards didn't go in. The house was almost like a Elsie Enders. Alkender. Just thinking about him made my heart pick up. I cursed at myself for thinking about him. We walked in and he told us to stay here. He walked upstairs and when I couldn't see him, I turned to Helma and looked at him. He's dirty and smells really bad. I guess he wanted to see me too, so he looked at me at the same time. He smiled and pulled me in a hug. Thank you, Jenna. Even though we just met, I consider you as a friend. You're welcome. And hey, I thought we were already friends, I said while I pushed him away and gave him a friendly glare. He looked at my face only. Wow. You are truly beautiful, he said while I rolled my eyes and said, not too bad for yourself. I know. I chuckled at his cockiness and looked back at the stairs when I heard his footsteps coming down. I had one of my own geezer bring me some clothes for you and I'm just going to lend you mine, he said, tossing me some clothes and tossing Helma some too. Take a shower, both of you. I'll be waiting for you guys and that's when we discuss what's going to happen now on. I looked at Helma while he turned to me with the same expression on. Confused. Chapter 23 Alkender. I shifted and stood without clothes, staring at the dead corpse in front of me. The Elix was gone, staying at the pack taking care of it. I took 2 warriors with me, and now we all stood without clothes staring at the dead rogue. Oh, Aluna did this. One of them asked behind me. I didn't answer him. I saw his neck lash and his ribs showing. I stood tall staring at what my mate is capable of. I felt my lips go up to a smack, because it's a fresh kill. She's close, I said while I looked up and looked around. But Alpha, we are near the northwest. If she traveled any further, she must have passed someone's territory. I clenched my jaw because I knew he was right. I haven't touched this land yet, so I don't know who has these lands. I turned around and see them staring at the dead corpse and then looking up at me. We'll head back. I have something in mind, I said while smirked. Just think about Jenna. Just wait, mate. You had enough fun playing your games. Just know I'm coming, and I always win. I mind-linked the Alex to bring me short because we were close to the borders. I shifted and saw Alex looking behind me, looking for his Luna. Where's she? He said while he tossed me the shorts after I shifted. Not with me, obliviously, I said while I walked past him and heard Bones snap telling me my warriors are shifting. Did you find out where she left off to? He said while he jogged to my side. Yeah. She's down the northwest area. Probably in someone's territory. He stuck out his hand, slamming it in my chest. I stopped as he went in front of me. The hell? How are you not freaking out? She's in someone's pack. With an elf, and aren't you someone else? I understand that, I said calmly. You're not mad. Oh no. I'm furious. You want to see me mad right now because I was trying really hard not get mad. I felt my wolf stirred around my mind. His eyes grew huge. No, it's fine. So, and what's going to happen next? Just shut the hell up for a minute, damn it. Why do I have to shower in your room? I said while I was walking down the hall with Carmen and Helma. For the millionth time, Jenna. Both you guys are taking a shower in there. There is no other shower because this is my house. He growled out. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I smirked while Helma was shaking his head and mumbling something to himself. He pushed open the door and stomped towards the bathroom. He slammed the door open and started to turn on the water gun. He pointed towards the shower while looking at me. I looked at Helma, but he's looking down. Probably because I'm still without clothes. I sighed and walked towards the door which he was standing in front of. So I waited till he moved away and was about to walk in, but he gripped my neck and made me look away from him. Next time, Jenna. I'm killing you. Quit your child play, he said in my ear, then shoved me in the bathroom, and I was about to turn around and telling him off, but the door slammed shut. I growled and dropped the clothes in my hand and stomped right in the shower. I'm surprised that I didn't slip because of my act, but I was mad. I violently washed my hair with his shampoo and conditioner and washed myself with his body wash. I mumbled to myself that I don't even know what. I was just saying random things. I shut off the water and found the towel sitting on the counter. I walked out and instantly my skin was filled with goosebumps. I wrapped my arms around myself and walked over to the towel. I started to dry myself off, but the door slammed open and I squirmed, trying to cover myself as fast as I can. His hand clasped on my arm, taking me out and then pushing Helma in. The towel fell while I was being yanked, so I was still dripping wet and my clothes are still in there. Let go. I yanked my arm back and went to grab the towel. I quickly picked it up and wrapped it around myself. What the hell, come in? I looked towards him and see him shaking his head with one hand on his forehead. He growled and started to breathe heavy. I took a step back because I didn't like the feeling I was getting. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He gritted out through his teeth. He looked up and I see black mixed with green in his eyes. I took another step back because all I knew that black means something bad going to happen. Like Alkindar. He growls again and shook his head. No, he breathes out heavily. I looked on the ground looking for anything to cover myself even more because I didn't like atmosphere in here. No, he growls again and shook his head. He looked at me with black eyes, but he shook his head again and his eyes went back to almost a dark green. No, he shut his eyes tight and growled. He started to walk away, but he would sway back and forth. I backed up till I was slammed against the door, but he fought with his wolf to get out of the room. He was close to the door, but he growled again and stopped. His breathing went back to normal and he stood straighter. I had wide eyes because I have never seen him like this before. Audrey was trying to tell me something, but I can only hear muffles from her. He cracked his neck and stared at the door. He rolled his shoulders and I heard him sigh and then chuckle. My hand went behind me searching for the knob. I looked behind me and saw I was nowhere close to the knob, so I went to reach for it, but he spoke. "Wow, my baby Jenna." I clenched my jaw because I knew that voice and I always hated that voice from him. His wolf. Chapter 24 Alkender. I need to find her. I can't stand not being next to her. I yelled to the Alex while I paced around my office while he sat on the chair watching me. "And I told you FCK your plan. Damn it. Move. I'm making calls." I walked around my desk and pushed him away from the phone and started to dial numbers. Answer, damn it. I waited for them to answer. After the third ring they picked up. "Hello." I felt my lips to grow up in a smirk. "Hello, friend. I have a question for you." I heard him suck in a harsh breath and my smirk grew bigger. "Alpha Alkender, how can I help you?" His voice trembled but he cleared his throat. "I'm going to be paying a little visit. If you dare step on my land with your pack, I would take that as a threat." Now I hear him getting railed up. I rolled my eyes and walked around the desk looking out the window. "It's not like that. I just want to have a chat. Be ready by tomorrow. I won't bring my warriors with me, but I'm bringing 2 men with me. I just have something to promote." "Promote? Like what?" "Goodbye, Alpha. See you tomorrow." I hung up the phone and held it by my side. "You know what to do with the pack. I'll be back later on today, so keep everything the same. And if someone disrespect you or Janet, just kill them," I said while I walked down the stairs with the Alex behind me. I walked towards the front door with the same warriors I took with me to find her. I looked behind me right when I reached the door and see Janet walking towards the Alex. "I'll see you soon," he said while I nodded and walked out. The warriors were standing outside chatting, but once they heard the door open they stood straighter and kneeled on one knee, bowing their heads in respect. "Let's go. I don't like being late." They quickly got on their feet and I walked over to the tree line and took off my pants and my button-up. I had a bag with me, so I stuffed my clothes and as well my shoes in there and shifted. I carried the bag in my mouth and took off in a sprint. I shifted back and took out my clothes and quickly put them on. The warriors did the same and stood beside me while we walked on the territory. I didn't like their pack smell. Smelled too clean. No blood wasn't marked on here. Maybe I'll just take this land too. We continued to walk further in and the border patrol finally found us and growled at us. I had a bored look on my face while I continued to walk. They stood in front of me and went in their stance. My warriors stood in front of me, ready to shift at any movement they would make. "Leave," he said in the background. I looked up and smirked when I saw him standing there with his bait and his Luna. "Alpha G Drek." I gave a dark smile towards him and looked at his mate. She didn't dare to look at me, which made me smile even more. "Alpha Alkender," he said while he pulled his mate closer to himself. "Long time no see. How's the scar?" I saw his eyes grow brighter, but his mate placed a hand on his chest. He looked down at her and gave a soft smile. He then looked back at me with a blank face. "I'm fine. Thanks for asking. How's yours?" "Don't have one." I smirked when I saw his jaw clench as he held her tighter. "Shall we talk about my deal?" I said while walking up to him. "That's what you came here for." "Why not?" He spat out while forcing a smile on his face. "Perfect. And how do I know she's on my lands? Or even on my neighbors?" He said while he ran a hand over his face. I walked around his office, stopping at the window looking down at his pack grounds. She's actually really smart. She knew her pack was south, so she went north. She ended up at 3 border lines after taking down a threat. She must have ended up here or either the other 2. I need to find her before anything happens. I don't like losing things that are mine. Well, I haven't had anyone trespass my lands. Except you and your men. I know that, because if she was on your land, I would have smelled her already. She was my mark and it would have been smelling a mix of me and her. So I know she's not on here. She on either the other 2 lands. If she wears your mark and she smells like you, wouldn't they already call you, telling you your Luna is on their land? I turned around and stomped my way towards his desk. I slammed my hands down on the desk. I figure they would, but someone is challenging me by taking my mate away from me. Would I find him and killing him and taking his land? I said while my wolf growled, just thinking of another alpha touching what's ours. Then why would you want me to help? I thought you were the alpha everyone feared. Clearly they are not seeing you as a threat. I clenched my jaw. That's why you are going to step on their land and talk to them. Talk about Rogor, how are you going to fix it? And if they end up talking about someone, or should I say, my mate, you tell them whatever, then you come back to me, and that's all you have to do for me. I'll take care of the rest. You'll leave my pack alone if I do this. No harm, he said while looking up to me from his seat. Enthusiasm, in the meantime. Yes, no harm towards your pack. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. So when this happens, the sooner the better. I still don't know what they are doing to her. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I'll make a call today and go to one pack tomorrow. I'll call you when I'm back at my pack and bring you here and talk about what happened. And if I don't find her in that one, I'll go to the next one and you'll find your mate there. He stood up and walked around his desk, walking in front of me. Perfect. He stuck out his hand and I gladly shook it. Talk to you then. Alpha Alkand He smiled while he led me out of his office. Talk to you then. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Chapter 25. Jenna. I didn't waste any time opening up the bathroom door and slamming it close behind me. My shaky hands quickly went to go lock the door, but I heard his stomping towards the door. I locked the knob and lock on the side and quickly took a step back. I was breathing heavy and the fog in here was not doing anything good. Hilna, I said while I stared at the door and jumped every time he would bang. What are you doing in here? Helmer, we have to get out of here. Like now. I said while I look over to the shower curtain and see him looking at me with his hair dripping wet. Like now. Yes, like now. I looked over on the counter and quickly put on the clothes that I didn't even get to put on. The curtain closed and I heard the water shut off. Can you hand me the towel? I tossed the towel over the curtain and was jumping on my toes because I didn't want to stay any longer. Hurry up, Helmer. I'm trying. The curtain busted open and quickly he stepped it and went over to the counter and quickly put on the clothes. I looked around for any opening so we can climb out. But just in our luck, there was none. I growled and looked over to the door right when he spoke again. Jenna, I just want to talk. What's going on? He whispered in my ear. I'll explain later. We have to pass him though, I said, nodding towards the door. He looked over but jumped when he banged the door again. Are you sure? Yes, now we have to do it fast so he won't expect it, I whispered. The pounding continued and my heart slammed hard against my chest. I can tell Helmer is cautious and second thinking about this. Are you sure? You don't want to wait it out? Now I'm the one second thinking about my stupid plan. Yes, I'm sure. Okay. On 3 we open the door and run past him. 1 to 3. I ran towards the door, unlocking it and pulling open the door. Alkander Alpha. I nodded towards him while I took a seat in front of his desk. Alkander. So, did you find her? My heart picked up just thinking of her. His face paled, and I quickly looked down at his fingers that were moving around. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. So I called one of the alphas of the South and called for a meeting. They gladly accepted the meeting and waited for me and my 2 men at the borderline. We talked about the ratings of robes. I asked if someone had pasted their lands. My heart started to beat faster and I shook my leg waiting for the answer. So far, he hasn't had none cross his lands. I clenched my jaw and sighed while my head hung low. Damn it, what alpha was this? I said, making my voice low. Alpha Alex. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Who's the other? Alpha, come in. I look up and he quickly looked down, away from my glaze. Thank you. I smiled and slowly stood up. Your work would be rewarded. He looks up and stares at my smile. I stuck out my hand waiting for his hand to shake mine. He slowly stood up and slowly clasped his hand around mine. I shook it and took a step back, unclasping. So you have your answer, Alpha. What now? I chuckled. Oh, you don't even know. Alex, I said, busting through the doors to my office. His head snaps up from the paperworks, and he quickly stands. Yes, I found her. But we have a little problem, I said while I rounded my desk and stood right beside him. And what is that? You know that little Efkin rogue that slipped through our fingers years ago? I growled out. Anyway, he's now an Alpha. He took some Wikevka's spot and now he has my mate. I growled even more just thinking what he's doing to her right now. So now what? What do you mean? Now what? We are going to destroy his pack and I'll kill him myself. I growled while I walked over to my window and see most of my pack training. So when are we going to invade? I snapped my head towards him. Now what the hell's Alex? I'm not going to wait any longer to get my mate. She's coming home. And I learn more land as a reward of winning the game. The game? Shut up. Round up the warriors. We are going soon. I call you men here to come help me get your Luna back from someone who thinks it's okay to disrespect your Alpha. Now what do you all know about me when you disrespect me? All hands shot up and I felt my lips curl up to a smile. What do I do? I said, pointing to small teenage wolf. You kill them, Alpha, he said, standing tall and looking straight ahead. My lips grew bigger and I stood taller on the podium while I heard the Alex huff beside me. I smiled because of what my pack thinks, and I love what they think. That's right. Now, are you ready to destroy the pack who thinks Troy to take your Luna? I growled out while they growled with me. My beta would take care of your pack when we are gone. Say goodbye to your family because there is no guarantees that you would come back intact. But I highly doubt it because it's a prize from us. I'll give you time to say goodbye, but we leave when the sun sets. Meet at the north border line. I'll be waiting. I looked over to Alex and nodded my head and walked off the podium and walked up to Janet. Bring that, my friend Alcandor. But don't hurt her like you've done before. I know how she got the next cars. I felt my face fall because I didn't know she knew. She nodded her head like she can see right through me. I know what you did, Alcandor. And it's not right for you to do that. I was about to say something, but she walked past me and walked over to Alex. I growled and walked over to the border waiting for the sun to set and to start the clock down. The clock down to find my mate. Chapter 26, Alcandor. I waited at the borderline for my men, but I was there too early. I had time to calm down from what Janet told me. Causing to trees with holes in their trunk from my fist. I growled when the pain came. I broke my fist by punching it a little bit too much Efkin's tea. I held my hand and see it deformed now with blood oozing from the cuts the bark has made. I took a deep breath in and snapped the bone that was pushed down. Back up and groaned when the pressure came in pain. I let out a low growl, but I started to see my skin heal. Hurry up. Something's wrong. I look up and look around, but rolled my eyes when I heard it was him. What? What, Donovan? I hissed in my head. I feel something's wrong with our mate. He growled back at me. Like something's bad going to happen to her. Like now. How shut up for once. And listen. I don't know how I know, but I just have this feeling. I don't know if it's from us marking her. But it just doesn't feel right. Let me mind link her now. I've tried and tried. But she blocked us out completely. I don't know how she did it. Probably years of practice with her wolf. But it won't work. I looked up to the sky and barely see that sun is barely going down. It hasn't even passed the trees. I just can't leave. I won't even make it pass. You've done it before. With Alex. Not by myself. Well, just mind link your men. Use that Efkin brain of yours. I growled at his response. But he was right. I'm sorry to cut your goodbye short. But something is wrong with your Luna. We have to hurry before she gets injured. Or even worse, leave us. Hurry now. Shift there. We meet running. I'll be ahead. I'm already at the borderlines. I'll be running ahead. I expect you all to catch up. Let's go get my mate. And your Luna. I shifted right, I said that and took off in a sprint. I heard howls from behind and twigs breaking behind me. I howled and heard them howl along. I looked to my right and see some men caught up, while I looked to my left and see the same thing. I looked straight ahead and felt my lips curl up to a wolfy grin. Once I get there, Alpha, you would wish that you've called me instead. I started to slow down when I saw crows pecking at the dead wolf, and trotted ahead. Alpha G. Drek said it was an Alpha Alex's land, and it was common. But which land was it? Left or right? I stuck my nose on the ground and started to sniff. Let me. I didn't have time to answer because he pushed me aside and took over. I growled at him, but he ignored me and led my pack to the land of my mate. I was so glad to see his eyes back to normal, but I only saw that when me and Helmer pushed him while I kneed him in his crouch and we were already at the door. I'm so R-R-Y. I-H had to O-Conti R-O-L him. He hissed out while he was on the holding his junk. Helmer was in front of me, guarding me away from him. What the hell? He growled. I brought my eyebrows together and looked at his back. I never heard him yell before and turn angry. If you knew you couldn't control your hornier wolf of yours, then you should have stepped out. He growled while he took a step closer to him. Kalmin's head snapped up. I tried to, he said between his teeth. I tried to, but I couldn't hold him back. He got up and took a deep breath in and closed his eyes. My wolf hasn't seen any other women since Jenna. He only wants Jenna, but seeing her with a mark and different scent he got out of line. He said, while he opens his eyes and looks at me. But Helmer quickly stepped to the side, hiding me away from his glaze. I don't care if your wolf likes her or not. She's not yours. She's clearly someone's, and he would probably come for her, because I would have. He growled out, Helmer, I'm okay. He didn't even touch me, I said while I looked his back. He looked over his shoulder and whispered only for me to hear. What are you still doing here? Go, I'll find a way out. I was just waiting for a perfect timing. Go. I'm so confused. Since when did we come up with that plan to escape? That go. I'll find my way out again. I paid attention when we walked up here. He looked back at Carmen, who was staring at him weird. And haven't you learned how to control it when your pack women go into heat? Well, yeah, it's no difference. That was last thing I heard because I was slipping out of the door and down the stairs. My heart beated faster. I kept it up to looking back because I didn't like leaving Helmer here by himself. I was close to the door, but I looked back when I heard Helmer yelling, Run, Jenna. Run, Jenna. He was skipping the stairs and his face was ghost white. I had huge eyes. I saw Carmen stomping towards the stairs and staring at Helmer, who was already beside me. I locked eyes with him for a split second, but I was being dragged out by Helmer. We were sprinting and I heard him howl. I looked over to Helmer. We were running and see him looking back, then straight ahead. What the hell did you say? I said while I started to feel sweat grow on my forehead. Nothing. Just said that we are leaving your pack and you were already on the borderlines. But I was wrong, he said while he tried to regain his breathing but was just panting. Oh my God. Helmer, you're so dumb. I growled out. I looked back and see him at the front of his house yelling at some men close by which were already shifting. We have to shift. Like now, I said while I looked over to Helmer. His eyes grew big and he looked at me. Now, yes, now. I haven't shifted in a while. Shut up, Helmer. Endless, you want to go back there and die without finding your mate. He growled at my response, but I started to see his back muscles shifted and I knew he was shifting, so I joined with him. He was a dark grey wolf with black ears, but I don't want to spend time watching him shift. I felt my paws hit the ground and I looked ahead towards the tree line far ahead. Oh, please let us live. Chapter 27, Jenna. We reached the borderline when I heard more wolves behind us. I was breathing through my mouth, but it was kinda hard. Helmer would slow down, but I barked at him. I didn't want him to get caught because of his stupid plan, and not ever see his mate. I ran closer to Helmer and pushed him with my snout, making him speed up. I ran behind him, snapping at his tail when he would slow down. We are running in the woods now. I'm snapping at his tail on the right so he can start to turn left. We need to go to the opening. Right when I was turning left, I was hit hard on my side, throwing me into the close tree. Helmer was thrown the same. I felt my rib snap. I already knew it's broken. No doubt. I growled low, but there was a hit of pain in it. One of his men growled at me, snapping his snout at me. I whimpered when I tried to rise up, but he growled and pushed me down with his snout. Growling back at me, I snapped mine at him, but he stepped back right before I got his front paw. It looked like Helmer was fine, because he got up and attacked his neck. The wolf in front of me looked over, debating if he should go over. I slowly got up and lunged at his neck. My claws came out, hooking into his skin while he struggled to shake me off. Every time he would shake, I would just clap harder till he was slowly starting to sway and dropping on his stomach. I pulled back while my paws pushed forward and took out a good piece of meat out of him. I pushed off his dead body while I tasted the blood seeping through my fangs. I looked over to Helmer and see him take down the other wolf too. I barked at him and he looked over and I see his tail wag, but stopped. His fur puffed up and he got low. I turned my head over my shoulder and see Carmen creeping towards us. He has his men behind him. They're all shifted and they slowly start to surround us. I looked over and see Helmer walking over to my side with a limp. We stood close together waiting for them to lunge at us. We crouched down, puffing our fur out, looking at all of their eyes, seeing if they would make any movement. Carmen walked forward, but me and Helmer growled at him. He growled back and looked over to his men, probably mind-linking them. They started to walk with him. I took a step back but ended up hitting the tree. Standing in front of me and Helmer, I didn't look there. I just stared at his face. Now he growled out. I looked at the corner of my eyes to Helmer and see him snaring at him. I looked back and slowly walked towards him. His men growled at me, but he stopped them by putting up a hand. I stood right in front of him. Helmer was snapping at my tail, but I waged it and slapped his face. I tilt my head and he stares down at me with glowing eyes. I start to shift my shoulders, and I see a smirk come of his face. But that's when I lunge. I slash my claw on his thigh and jump up, pushing him back. I look over to Helmer and started to run towards where we're heading to. He was confused, but once everyone was out of their moment, they finally caught up what happened. Helmer caught up to me as we zigzagged through the trees. We ran side by side. He roared and I heard his men trying their best to catch up. I felt my lips curl up. I looked behind and saw that they were barely catching up. I saw Carmen at the end but limping. I smiled to myself and sprinted harder. Helmer pushed himself to keep up with my speed, but I would slow down a little. I saw the opening and barked at Helmer. He looked at me while I looked at him. I saw him smile while I felt my lips grow bigger, but right when we turned our head, I slammed right into another tree. He did too. I was thrown backwards to the ground while he was thrown to his side. He's here. What? I asked while I closed my eyes shut because the pain from my rib hurt so much. But she didn't answer me back. I shook my head and then I remembered we are being chased. I rolled to my side and looked over to Helmer and see him already up growling at one wolf. They caught us. I jumped up, ignoring the pain from my side, and turned around, puffing my fur up. But I stopped. My fur went down. My eyes grew huge, and I almost whimpered. Alkand, His dark grey fur shined with the sunlight, while his blue eyes shined in the light. He looked at me and I swear I heard him say, "Found you." I stood there frozen, just staring at him. He found me how? That left my mind where he looked past me and growled. I looked over my shoulder and saw Carmen in front of his men, staring at us. Alkanda walked past me and stood in front of me, standing tall waiting for Carmen's move. I don't know what to do. I honestly don't know. Should I run? Should I leave and make them both chase me? Or if I run, would they let me? I look over to Helmer and see him circling around one of the wolves he slammed into. I looked at the men behind me, but they walked past me, guarding me away from Carmen and his men. My mind is all over the place. I don't know what to do. A part of me is yelling for me to run, leave them for good, but I have to take Helmer. But the other part of me is wanting me stay with my— Shut up, Audrey. Stop putting those thoughts in my mind. I'm not. I haven't even done anything. I rolled my eyes and looked back to Alkanda. Wrong thing to do. He was already shifted and I stared at his butt. So you had my mate the whole time. You seen her mark. You smelled my scent on her. Yet, you kept her on your land. He growled out. Common shifted and stood there, not even bothered by Elsie Anders' tone. She trespassed. I couldn't let her just get away. I growled because that's not what he said in that stupid cell. He looked behind his shoulder, staring at me. I shook my head because I didn't like his voice in my head. I blackened out. How'd he get in? Shift, Jenna. I growled. But I did. I held my side and bit my lip from crying out from the pain of my rib. He saw me and clenched his jaw. What happened to her? He growled out, looking away from me. I don't know what you're talking about. He growled, but he turned around and walked towards me. I couldn't move because it hurts way too much. It's not just one broken rib. That's for sure. I looked down, covering myself. His hand went to my mark, while sending shivers down my spine. He lifted my head and our eyes met. Stupid Bond. I'll always win. And he bent down to my ear. I'm going to kill him for taking away my prize. And when I'm done, I'm getting rid of that smell of him. And that what you have? He turned around and shifted. That's when all hell broke loose. Chapter 28, Jenna. I'm being carried off by Alcander. Like how he carried me off his land. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. This is what happened. Alcander charged at him with his men, and went to attack Common and his men. Common barely had time to shift and jump up when Alcander did. They fought like savage animals. No one was giving up. Alcander charged at him with a plan. He went for the sides, then his neck, then back to the legs, then his neck. Common was just attacking whatever he can reach. But in the end Alcander clamped down on his neck while Common struggled to get out his hold. I didn't want to look at his life leave his eyes, so I went to find Helmer. He took down the wolf who circled around. He was looking around for something. He saw the wolves attack each other, but he looked away too. I shifted and ran towards him, and once he turned his head towards my direction, he started to jog towards me. He had a wolfy grin while his tail wagged. I rolled my eyes because while he was grinning, blood stained his teeth, and he looks like a savage animal. I heard everyone stop, and I looked behind me, and I saw Kalman's dead body on the ground with his tongue hanging out. Alcander shifted and stood tall. I'm your new alpha. There's no questions to ask. I defeated your alpha. There would be trials for spots of warriors. I'll come back tomorrow. I want every single one of you, children and females, to line up at the center of the territory. Whoever is not there would be dead. Children or women. They would be dead. He said it loud to the wolves who was pinned down by his wolves. He turned around and made eye contact with me. I saw all his muscles tense while he looked to the side of me. I looked to where he was looking at and see Helmer made his way next to me. I looked back to Alcander and already see him walking fast towards us. I grew big eyes and I can see Helmer get tense beside me and puffing out his fur. I looked back to Alcander and see his chest moving up and down hard and fast. I shifted back and walked towards him. He didn't even give me a glance. He kept his eyes on Helmer. I heard Helmer shift. Alcander stop, I said while walking towards him. He still didn't look at me. He didn't even do anything. Leave him alone, I said while he was about to pass me. But I stuck out my hand and gripped his arm. Sparks flowed through my arm and I tried to stop myself from shivering. It's been so long since I felt these sparks. Keep touching him. Audrey, shut up. You always come at the wrong time. I blocked her out and looked up to his eyes. They were bright hazel, but he was staring at me. He didn't do anything. He was there in the cell with me. He was in the cell with you. He growled out and push-pasted me towards Helmer. Alcander. He walked towards him while Helmer stood tall with his fist at his side. They stood tall, not one backing down, and that's when Alcander threw the first punch. Alcander. I yelled while I ran towards him. Helmer threw a punch towards him too, slamming into his jaw. I wrapped my arms around his waist and pulled him back. He turned around and quickly pulled me into his chest. His head was in my neck, breathing me in. I stood there frozen because I didn't know what to do. I pushed him back while taking a step back. He had his eyes closed, but when he opened them they were back to hazel. Stop. He didn't even do anything. He was in another cell. He didn't do anything bad. He was the one that helped me escape. I yelled at him while I looked to Helmer, who has a bloody nose. I looked back to Alcandor and see him just staring at me. He clenched his jaw and looked over to Helmer. Is it true? He growled out. I don't like Jenna like that. And yes, it's true. I'm looking for my mate. I don't want Jenna. I helped her get out of my distracting Carmen, he said while he wiped his nose. Alcandor growled but didn't say anything. He looked over to me and said, I don't want anyone staring at you. I looked towards his men and see them staring at me but quickly looking away. I sighed but shifted. I looked over to Helmer and see him shifting. One of you. Or two. Take him to the cells when we get to our grounds. Walk with him. I don't want him running, he said while looking at his men. I growled at Alcandor and stood in front of Helmer. I snapped my jaw at him while he rolled his eyes. Don't do this again, Jenna. He shifted and stood in front of me. Let's go. I shook my head and rubbed my paw over my head. Let's go. Or I'll carry you. I looked towards him and narrowed my eyes, challenging him. And that's how I'm being carried off to his land. I would shake, but he would just growl against my neck. Helmer is next to us, because Alcandor made them walk next to us. We made it on his lands, but he continued to carry me to his house. Helmer and the two wolves were still next to us. He placed me on the ground and pushed me towards the door with his nose. To my agent extraordinaire, Madame Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I huffed but shifted and opened the door. I was about to close it, but it opened again. I looked over my shoulder, seeing Alcandor walking in. I'll be back. Don't leave, he said over his shoulder. He looked towards me, but I was already going up the stairs. We need to talk. I ignored him and walked towards the room with the clothes that Janet got me. I grabbed some yoga pants and a big t-shirt. I quickly placed them on and walked out of the closet. I spun around and already see him in basketball shorts. What? What? I yelled. Well, I was going to walk past him, but he grabbed my arm and yanked me back. I want to start over, he said while he looked down at me. I narrowed my eyes at him. You have my friend out there, waiting to be locked up, and you want to talk about us. Alcandor. Not right now. I want you to not lock him up because all he ever done was help me get out. He clenched his jaw and looked away from my eyes. He killed one of my men. He deserved to be killed. He even had a scent on you. He mumbled. I pushed his chest, but he didn't go anywhere. He killed one of your men. So what? If your men are that great at fighting, that means he's good enough to take down one of your men. Leave him alone. Let him be in your pack then. Let him be a warrior. Since you lost one. I growled out. He looked at me and stared. I don't know, he mumbled, but I was slapped him. If I killed one of your men, would you kill me? No, right. Don't kill him. Because he's my friend, and if you do that, I would kill myself because all he wants is to find his mate. He looked hurt by my words but growled. He gripped my arm tighter and pulled me closer. You will never say that again. You hear me, Jenna? Don't kill him then, I said while I pushed him away and walked downstairs outside, while he stood there watching me leave. Chapter 29. Jenna. I walked out the doors and see them walking away from me with Helmer struggling to get out of their grips. I ignore him, but when he grabs my arms I spun around and growled. What, Alcandor? I said while I tried to pull away from his grip. He tightened it and sparks continued to flow through my body. I won't kill him. If you at least talk to me. His eyes were pleading for me to say okay. His body language was praying for me to say okay. His face will fall if I say no. I'm sure he would stop working. My heart pumped faster and I couldn't help but fall into the trap of saying okay. I looked behind and saw the guards letting him go. While Helmer was confused and was about to make a run for it, but stopped when Alcandor spoke. I'll kill you if you escape. But for now you are to attend the pack house and freshen up. I'll be there in a couple of hours. He starts to pull towards the door and all I can do is stare at his back. He just lied to me about killing him. He dragged me upstairs and plopped me down on the bed. I know from the very start he hated me. just because of what people have said about me. And yes, I heard them all. But that doesn't mean I'll be like that with my known mate. I know I've chained you. I've been horrible from the very beginning. But you've been the same. I put those chains on you because that's what I was grown up to. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nolan, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. That was the first thought that came to mind when I couldn't get you to submit. I'm horrible for doing that, but I can't do anything about it now. But just look at the scars on your neck, taunting me, telling me I was the one who caused it. And when I look at your wrist, that gets me even more mad. Because you've been through enough pain and he decides to chain you too. I was mad. No, I was furious. I'm furious that we fought all the time. I don't think we even took the time to appreciate each other like mates. I want to start over. Forget my title. Forget your sass. Forget the past. I want to start something with my mate. He said while he was squatted in front of me and placing a hand on my thigh. Elkander, you act like I can forget what happened, and I don't see us going any further. I meant what I said about rejecting you. I don't regret it at all. I said well I tried to keep my voice stern, but I failed. His face falls. So you don't feel anything if I touch you like this. His hand moves away from my thigh and goes up to my cheek. His hands rest on my left cheek and his hazel eyes bore into mine. His eyes soften, while I'm trying really hard not to close my eyes and lean more into his touch. It's a trick, I tell myself. But when I start to hear Audrey start to talk in the background, I can't help but to close my eyes. His thumb starts to crease my cheek. I let out a sigh and I feel myself lean more into him. But I can't seem to fight my own body to try to pull away. Jenna, I know you feel the pull towards me. I just want to start over. Start over what I messed up before. Please, give me a chance. If you still don't feel the same pull like I expect you to do, you can reject me. I'll accept it. But give me a chance. Just one. Let me clean this up and treat you like a queen you are supposed to be. I open my eyes and see him staring at me with a mix of happy and sad eyes. I feel my shoulders drop. Please, Jenna, that's all I ask. If you still don't want to be together, you'll reject me. I won't say no. I'll accept it. Because clearly a second chance isn't good enough for you and you clearly don't feel the pull or at all like me. Please. Just one chance. I stare into his eyes and see nothing but the two emotions. He's not lying. I lick my lips. But his eyes remain on mine. One chance, Alkander. That's all you get. One chance. I stare at his facial expression. But it doesn't change. Lucius. His hand drops from my cheek and my head almost falls because I was leaning onto it for so long. You don't want me to give you a chance then? He stood up and brought his hands up to hair. You're not joking. I stood up and I felt my face grow in annoyance. Look, Alkander. I would have said no. But I said yes and now I'm thinking about Chang. I saw his lips grow into a full smile and his big arms pulled me to his chest. I stood there with my arms at my side, not knowing what to do. Thank you. Sparks and his heat flowed through my body, and it felt so good. So the only thing my body did was snuggle closer to him. My eyes closed and slowly I felt my arms go up. For a while my body was in control and I couldn't do anything but just let it happen. We stayed like this for a while till I got in control and pulled away. But when I did, with a full-on smile, I'll have to see if this mud is good for my pack, he said while his face went back to a scowl. Don't call him that. And attack him if he has my scent on him. Remember, he helped me get out of Kalman's land. I said while I walked past him and walked towards the stairs. I can't promise you that, Jenna, because I'm trying really hard to not take you right now because of how many scents you have on right now. I'm trying so hard not to. So if I attack, it means I couldn't stand his scent. Especially if I could smell him on you still. He said from behind, but I stopped right at the staircase. You act like that's his fault. I said while I spun around. He was stalking towards me with his shoulders high and built, while his whole body shone power. I'm not saying it is. I'm saying if I do attack him, then you know why. I clench my jaw but turn around and walk towards the pack house. I hear him close behind, but he ends up right at my side, snaking an arm around my waist while we walk out the door. I unhook his arm and took a step to the side while still walking. I just forgave you. It didn't mean you can walk around and hold me, but you just let me do it in the room. That wasn't me, I said while I can see the pack house ahead. Alcandor. Please. I didn't mean to upset you. You didn't, I said while I walked upstairs to the house. Jenna. Wait. Walk with me inside because I don't think I can control, he said from behind me, but I already had opened the door and I see Helmer staring at the door with a sandwich in his hand. I felt Alcindor come up from behind me, while I look over my shoulder and already see his eyes bright blue. Oh no.